Yes, ma'am. Mr. Gallagher?
Here.
Mr. Schron? Ms. Conwell? Mr. Jones?
Here.
Ms. Conley? Mr. Rogers? Ms. Simon? Mr. Greenspan?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Brady?
Present.
Mr. Germana?
All right, we have a quorum present, and the second thing on the agenda is the Ms. Cole, and I did get a message from Mr. Rogers. He is tied up in another matter. He will be here probably about 5, and Mr. Schron is at the job summit over at Cleveland State. So he indicated he'll be here as soon as that's over. So Ms. Cole, do you want to come up? We've asked Ms. Cole to come up and address the council regarding the responsibilities of Director of Public Works. We will be having hearings on the Director of Public Works Thursday at 1. So we kind of like to get an idea of what that person will be doing so that we can anticipate her duties.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
My name is Sharon Cole, and I am the Deputy Chief of Staff for Operations for Cuyahoga County Executive Ed Fitzgerald. I will be providing you with an overview of the Public Works Director position in preparation for the confirmation hearing of Bonnie T. Wynn this coming Thursday. As one of 4 Deputy Directors for the administration, I will work with the Director of Public Works to ensure that this new charter-mandated position continues the work that was previously performed by the County Engineer's Office in an effective and efficient manner. It is important that the person holding this position have a strong engineering background and is focused on implementing cost-saving and revenue-generating measures, including but not limited to those prescribed by the Procurement and Public Works Transition Advisory Work Group. This director will be responsible for adhering to Chapter 315 in the Ohio Revised Code, which describes the duties of an engineer to perform inspections, conduct surveys, and maintain accurate records. This person will work with other operations departments such as HR, fiscal, and CIO, as well as other county departments in an effort to create a seamless management and service delivery system. Because of my technology and engineering background, as a member of Executive Fitzgerald's transition team, I was charged with reconvening the members of the Procurement and Public Works Work Group. I reviewed the group's 14 recommendations and held a meeting to obtain clarification and feedback so that a more concise set of indicators could be presented to the executive immediately before taking office. Many of these measures are already in process and will be discussed in more details during Thursday's hearing. The Public Works Director incorporates 3 previously independent divisions of the county: the County Engineer's Office, the County Sanitary Engineer's Office, and Central Services. The County Engineer's Office is responsible for the maintenance and reconstruction of 220 bridges and assisting municipalities with the improvement of 794 miles of county roadway. Some of these include the Veterans Memorial, Harvard-Denison, and Hope Memorial bridges. It also maintains 22 miles of roadway in the county's 2 townships. The Engineer's Office provides a variety of engineering, construction, and land record-keeping services. They include preparation of road and bridge construction plans, bridge inspections, project planning, environmental research, funding appropriation, construction management, road and bridge maintenance, traffic studies, vehicular counts, geodetic surveys, tax map revisions, Geographic Information Service or GIS management, government and public relations, and publication of the official county map. There is a staff of 164 employees with an operating and capital impact of almost $60 million. Working in cooperation with the Ohio Department of Transportation and the Northeast Ohio Area-Wide Coordinating Agency, or NOACA, the County Engineer's Office manages a capital improvement program used for the planning of future road and bridge improvements. Most of the County Engineer's operations are financed in part by the Ohio Vehicle Registration Fee, County Permissive Motor Vehicle License Tax, State Gasoline Tax, and available federal highway and bridge funding. The Cuyahoga County Sanitary Engineering Division administers management of wastewater and stormwater systems. The Sanitary Engineering Division is a major source of information and guidance that mayors, municipal engineers, and service directors rely on when making infrastructure decisions within their communities. In addition, the division has expertise with wastewater treatment plants and pump stations. The division encompasses 32 communities and maintains nearly 1,060 miles of sanitary sewers, treats millions of gallons of wastewater, operates 45 sewage pumping stations, and maintains 3 wastewater treatment plants throughout Cuyahoga County. The division also has agreements with municipal corporations for the establishment, operation, and maintenance of sanitary sewers. In addition, standards for any system connected to or served by a county-owned improvement are established and enforced. There is a staff of 121 employees with an operating and capital impact of $25 million annually. All operating funds for the division are created through fees and assessments. The division does not receive a subsidy through the general fund. However, it does use the general fund's bonding capacity. The Department of Central Services manages and maintains all county facilities. The departments under Central Services includes the Animal Shelter, Architectural Services, Building Trades, County Archives, Custodial Services, Energy Management, Fleet Management, the Mailroom, Parking Services, the Print Shop, Project Management, Real Estate Services, and Risk Management. There's a staff of 350 employees with an approximate operating budget of $56 million and capital improvements of $200 million annually. The Central Services Division contracts for services or purchases equipment for most county agencies and bills the agencies for these services. The charges to the agencies are based on each agency's proportion of usage. Ms. Tewan has already begun the process of meeting staff and learning the specific duties in each of the 3 areas which she will oversee. She has thoroughly reviewed the work group recommendations, assessed which ones have already been implemented, and created a timeline for implementation of others. She must work to ensure road and bridge integrity, work cooperatively with municipalities to coordinate traffic plans, partner with NOACA and the Ohio Public Works Commission to leverage federal and state dollars, and work with the procurement department to streamline the bidding process in an effort to complete county engineering projects in a timely manner. In closing, the director must simultaneously manage a diverse staff as well as focus on how to create and maintain an efficient Department of Public Works. It will be critical to swiftly implement strategies to locate cost savings as well as generate additional revenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cole. I understand Ms. Tewan is here. Stand up and recognize her. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Do you have any questions?
Madam President. Madam President, to Ms. Cole, first I want to thank you for a great overview, and wondered if you could send that to us in electronic format, and so we could have a copy of it. And Madam President, to Ms. Cole, you mentioned 3 wastewater treatment plants, pumping stations, things like that done in the sanitary engineer's office. Can you explain the relationship between what the sanitary engineer does and what the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District does?
I'm going to defer any detail specifics to Thursday's hearing. More of today was about an overview. What we are doing right now is assessing all of those connectivities, assessing cost savings that we could have in sanitary engineering as it relates to the sewer district. So I would actually defer that until Thursday so that we can have a more detailed answer. Sanitary engineer is present here, so he could probably give a more detailed explanation if you were unwilling to hold off until Thursday on that.
Madam President, I'm willing to hold off till Thursday.
All right, that's fine.
I have one other question, if I might, to Ms. Cole, and maybe this gets deferred as well. But my other question is you mentioned about the Central Services doing $200 million in capital improvements, which kind of surprised me. Could you kind of just give me some examples of what some of those things are?
A lot of the capital improvements, a few of them you'd actually see as you walk around the corner on the 4th floor. making sure that structures are sound, making sure that structures are adequate for services that are going to be delivered. For example, right now we're working on the Regional Crime Lab. There's an RFP out for that. So that will be capital and improvements to the coroner's office. So all of those are compacted, again, through the chair to the councilman. More detailed information on that will be coming this Thursday. But it has to do with a number of projects that are going on right now to improve county buildings throughout the county. One of the things that Ms. Tewan and I are going to be looking at is assessing all county properties. So I could say $200 million is under our belt, but more of that will be a balance of improving county buildings, but also effectively using those structures. So after this assessment, we may determine that, for example, 80% of those buildings are effectively used, are saving money, managing money well for the county, but 20% of those buildings aren't being used effectively or aren't being used at all. So nervous about giving too much detail on that until an assessment is complete of all facilities and the use of those facilities by Ms. Tewan.
Madam President, to Ms. Cole, I would just ask if on Thursday, if a list of the major capital improvements and how much money is involved could be brought, because $200 million seems to me like an awful lot of capital improvements, and I just want to get a better understanding of what those are. Thank you.
Through the chair to the councilman, we'll make sure that we have that available.
Are there any other questions or any other things that you'd like Ms. Tewan to bring, be prepared to answer? I will give you a little, if we think of some questions, we'll
Just let us know.
We'll let us know. All right. And Ms. Tewan, do you want to just come up and introduce yourself and just give us a 2-minute resume so we'll know who you are and what you look like? And
thank you. I apologize for being late. I was at the Economic Development, as a lot of you were also. My name is Bonnie Tewan. Sharon did a great job with an overview as far as what Public Works will be doing. My background is I have a Bachelor's of Science degree in Civil Engineering from the University of Akron, graduated in 1985, so I have approximately 25 years of experience in the infrastructure business. I have a mix of experience from public sector, working with ODOT, to the private side, working with consultants. So I have a good blend of public and private experience. Just before this, I was the District 12 Deputy Director at ODOT.
all right, well, bring your armor and your bulletproof vest on Thursday, and we'll be ready.
You all look like very nice people. So.
I have some eager councilmen with some real tough questions to ask you, and we will see you on Thursday at 1 o'clock.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Ms. Cole. Anything further on this matter? All right, thank you, Ms. Cole. Mr. Sheriff, Mr. Reed. Mr. Reed is one of my constituents, so I have to be happy, nice to him.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Let me just introduce myself. I'm Sheriff Bob Reed. I've been the sheriff now in Cuyahoga County it'll be 2 years in May, and it's been a lot of hard work. But let me tell you just a little bit about myself. I'm a Mayfield graduate, 1969. After military service, I came back and went into Cuyahoga Community College, and then a graduate of Cleveland State University, and joined the Bedford Police Department in 1975. I served in the police department for almost 25 years in just about every capacity, from patrol officer to detective sergeant, lieutenant, and then I was promoted to chief in 1989. Served on a number of different units, SWAT, hostage negotiation unit for the Southeast area. And when I became chief, I became the commander of the narcotics unit for the Southeast area. In Bedford and in the Southeast area. As chief of police, I served as president of the Cuyahoga County Chiefs Association, attended the FBI National Academy in 1992. And in the year 2000, the city manager was leaving the city of Bedford, and the city of Bedford asked if I would fill in for a couple months, take it as a temporary position as the acting city manager, and 10 years later, I was city manager for 10 years. So it brings to the sheriff's office, I believe, what is a real blend between law enforcement in my 25 years there and 10 years as a city manager dealing with a $32 million budget in the city of Bedford, I think it gives a good blend and a good balance to the management of the Sheriff's Department. Let me tell you a little about the Sheriff's Department and the responsibilities that we have. We have 1,094 employees. We have 13 different bargaining units and 5 different unions. So we're constantly in negotiations within the unit. We have an $89 million budget that includes everything from top to bottom, the jail, all the facilities. Let me just share with you some of the mandates that we have under the Ohio Revised Code. For example, we have a civil division, which is involved with all of the foreclosures, writs, subpoenas. We have approximately 37 employees that are assigned to the foreclosure or to the civil division. That's also on the 3rd floor of the sheriff's office. Again, a lot of responsibility between process servers, evictions. We're down approximately 15 employees from when I took office, but we're not complaining. We're saying that we're doing it better. We're more efficient. We're more effective. What we've asked everybody to do is to cross-train, learn everybody else's job, and all of our employees have absolutely stepped to the plate. We're responsible for the court towers, all the security that's involved for the 34 judges that are on the Justice Center side, and then all the judges that are across the street at the Lakeside Towers, the Lakeside Courthouse. A lot of responsibility. Deputies that are assigned to the 34 judges not only coordinate the movement of prisoners throughout the courtrooms, but also coordinate with our jail on a daily basis in bringing prisoners up and down. A lot of responsibility and a lot of hard work. Our sexual offenders unit, again, under the Ohio Revised Code, we have 10 deputies that are assigned to track and monitor over 3,400 sexual offenders throughout Cuyahoga County. The 10 deputies do a number of different things. Between the level 1, 2, and 3 sex offenders, they verify, for example, we have sex offenders coming in from different counties throughout the state of Ohio and out of the state. When they come in, we have to make sure that we send a deputy to the house to verify their actual address. And then we have to make notifications throughout that neighborhood to people, by mandate, people in front, people in back, on the sides, and across the street. And then we have what's called a watch system that actually sends out mailings to all of the residents within 1,000 feet of the area. A lot of responsibility for 10 deputies. We have a criminal records division, approximately 20 employees that track all of the criminal records throughout Cuyahoga County. Also track 125 inmates approximately that are brought into the correction center every day and are released every day. Our warrant unit, about 15,000 warrants that are outstanding in Cuyahoga County, way too many. We only have 10 deputies that are assigned to the warrant unit. It's a challenging job. It's a dangerous one. We're going after usually those that we have fresh tips on, and we are usually going after the worst of the worst. We have a transport unit also consisting of a number of deputies. We started something last year, in May of last year, or actually in June of 2009, that hadn't been done in Cuyahoga County. We are actually have a transport van that is actually going to the different communities and picking up our prisoners. I can just share with you what used to happen when I was in a zone car years and years ago, and we'd get a warrant for somebody that was wanted out of the Cuyahoga County Sheriff's Office, and you could hear the moans and groans on the radio, knowing that prisoner was going to probably stay in your jail for 2 or 3 days before either they were brought down from that municipality, us, or somebody would come out to get them. We've stopped that. We pick up about 40 prisoners a day with our transport unit, and that helps every suburb in Cuyahoga County by keeping officers on the street. Communities that have 2 or 3 officers working, if they have to take 2 officers off the road and transport that prisoner to the county jail, that's an issue involving the safety of that community and also the safety to the officers that they're working with. Our detective bureau consists of about 20 detectives. We investigate everything from homicides to complaints from council people, mayors throughout the community that may have an issue that is sensitive in their community and they would rather not have not that the police department is not up to the task, but they may not want a police department to investigate something in the community, especially if it's involved with the police department. Our 20 detectives do all of that, also investigate all crime that occurs on any of the properties in the county. We have our narcotics unit. Detectives along with our canines, our highway interdiction unit. No other community in Cuyahoga County has a highway interdiction unit. We sit on the highway and we actually look for couriers coming in to Cuyahoga County that are bringing drugs into the community. We're very successful at it. We have 4 dogs that is also assigned to that unit, and every year we seize in excess of $250,000, usually in cash, and a lot of drugs. That's the mission, though, is to get the drugs off the street. Task forces, we have deputies assigned to 9 different task forces, including mortgage fraud, the fugitive task force, violent crime. We coordinate and partner with the FBI and the Cleveland Police Department with 3 separate units looking for the most violent crimes in the community, and we investigate those. We also have deputies assigned to the ICAC, which is Internet Crime Against Children, and the Northeast Ohio Law Enforcement Task Force, which is a task force that centers around narcotics issues, large narcotics issues throughout Cuyahoga County. Our Fusion Center, now taken over by the Sheriff's Office since October of last year. It was under Justice Affairs before that. The 4 employees that were assigned to the Fusion Center were actually assigned from Justice Affairs. They are now county sheriff's employees. Briefly, to tell you what the Fusion Center does, it takes information from all over the county, and we're still working at getting more information to the Fusion Center. And what we try to do is connect the dots through criminal analysis and intelligence analysis for issues that could be going on in the county in reference to possible terrorism, the possible patterns of crime throughout Cuyahoga County. We're pleased that we took the unit over in October. It's almost totally funded by Homeland Security dollars. And it's funded all the way through 2013. Our protective services, also 155 employees that were called the brown shirts. They're no longer going to be called the brown shirts. They will be the black shirts. We're changing their uniforms. We've changed their patches. They were assigned to Central Services. They became under the sheriff's veil as of April of last year. They were brought under the sheriff from Central Service at the request of Central Services because they were more obviously quasi-law enforcement. They protect the 31 buildings that we have here in Cuyahoga County. We have done an assessment of all those buildings recently to see if we can't actually reduce some of those posts and maybe increase some of those posts if we see the need to do so. With that, we'll be able to maybe clear up deputies that are now assigned to security duty rather than actual deputy duty in the near future. We're working with our unions to negotiate those issues, but I think that we're going to be very successful with it. Our downtown patrol, we have 6 deputies that are assigned to the downtown patrol. Thursday through Sunday, we help the Cleveland Police Department a great deal, especially in the summer months, especially during times when we have Indians games, we have any professional sport that's going on. We help the Cleveland Police Department in the patrol of that area. Very busy patrol unit. Let me share with you some of the issues involving our correction center. $55 million to $58 million is part of our budget. The correction center has a daily population of over 2,000. We were built we opened in 1977, and then Jail 2 actually opened in the 90s. Our capacity is 1,765. This morning we were at 2,151. So it's built for fewer than we have, but our correction staff, 600 COs, supervisors, those that are assigned to the medical unit. We have a $1.2 million medical unit, 22 full-time registered nurses, 18 full-time licensed practical nurses and medical technicians, $1.2 million in pharmaceuticals, a $1.8 million contract that you'll be reviewing today in reference to medical services, the doctors that are contracted. We're a little different from any other county. We are a maximum security facility. And we have the majority of the employees are county employees that are assigned to the correction center. Many county correction centers have contracted employees. We're a little different. And what I'll share with the county executive and with yourselves in the weeks to come is a plan what we're going to do, our thoughts on how we're going to try to make it more efficient and effective in 2012. I have my colleagues here this evening, Chris Dubber, who is our head nurse, and also Ken Kochevar, the director of corrections, that'll go a little bit into detail on the medical contract that you'll have in front of you tonight. Let me just share with you. In addition to that, we have clergy, social workers, psychiatrists. 25%. Let me tell you the challenges in the jail. 25% of our population at any given time is under some type of psychiatric medication. So we have psychiatrists that are assigned to the jail just at the beginning when these inmates are brought in. They're assessed by a very professional team to see what medications they need, where they need to be placed within the jail, if they're frail. There's so many issues that we look at. If they're gang members and they need to be separated from others, we could have one inmate that has 6 different issues and has to be coordinated through our corrections officers and the director. A lot of serious business with a population of over 2,000 every day. We revamped the structure of the sheriff's office, and I'll go into that maybe during the confirmation hearings, but I think what we've done is we've made it leaner and tougher. We've reduced the top side. I believe that when we came into office that we were a little brass heavy. We've reduced that to make sure that we have more supervisors on the line rather than supervisors above. It's worked very well, and we have many success stories that I'd like to share with you later. Prisoner board and care. I'm almost done. Prisoner board and care. $7 million we paid out in 2008. What you may not know is that our facility, as I said, is built for 1765. When we start to approach 2000, we start to get nervous about that population. You have prisoners then sitting on the floor or sleeping on the floor. It presents a safety issue to not only the inmates but certainly to our staff. So when we get to that point, we have to then ship prisoners out. We ship them throughout Cuyahoga County, and we're outside of Cuyahoga County for a good deal of time. In 2008, we spent $7 million. When I became sheriff in 2009, I said it was all over the place on how much communities could charge the Cuyahoga County and the sheriff's office for prisoners. We took it from some communities that were as high as $85 to those that were at $55. We did it across the board at $55 per day per prisoner. And we dealt with all 12 municipal courts to see if we can't get prisoners, and they've cooperated with us a great deal to get prisoners directly to the assigned directly to the corrections center from municipal courts rather than us having to go pick them up. We're still working with them to see if we can't get those numbers down in reference to home detention and other alternatives to incarceration. We're working hard with the municipal jails. But we're also working hard with our partners in the prosecutor's office and the court for early case management issues to try to get those that are felony 4s and 5s that are brought into the Justice Center and to the corrections facility that are nonviolent, to try to get them in and out as quickly as possible, knowing full well that we want to have justice served. So we're working with our partners in the prosecutor's office for an early case management program that's now been in effect for 3 years, and our common pleas, the judges in common pleas, and it's working very effectively. We hope to expand the program to the city of Cleveland, to the rest of the districts in the city of Cleveland in a very short period of time. Let me tell you some of the projects we have going on. We have a kitchen project that's going to start very soon, a $5 million project in the jail. It's going to actually, the kitchen that we've had there has been there since 1977. It's a new kitchen. It's actually going to be a teaching kitchen so that we can bring some of these inmates down that would be trustees and want to learn some type of a trade, meal preparation, whatever we may be able to do. But it's a $5 million project that will break ground here in February or March. We're also looking at a regional prisoner project with the City of Cleveland. City of Cleveland approached us in March of 2010 to take over their entire operation of prisoners. We have been researching the cost and benefit analysis to that over the last year. We're very, very close to coming up with a draft program that we're going to present to the county executive and to this council for your review. I think it's a great idea for criminal justice. It's also it's something that I think in the long term will save a lot of money for the City of Cleveland. I've told the City of Cleveland, I said, don't be offended. I just think that we can do it better. We're a maximum security prison. We would be able to ship prisoners out to misdemeanor facilities. On all of this, a number of these issues would be at the expense of the Cleveland Police Department, the City of Cleveland. But we're going to present the program to the county executive within the weeks to come. Regional law enforcement, we're going to look at that. I'll close with that. Regional law enforcement, the county executive has asked us to put together some thought in reference to impact units, maybe a blend of impact units and community policing type situations throughout the county. We think it's deplorable that in the city of Cleveland or Cuyahoga County, we have out of the top 25 worst neighborhoods in America that we have 2 of them right here in Cuyahoga County. I think that we can do it, and we can do it in a partnership with the city of Cleveland, and we can do it in a partnership with the Cuyahoga County Chiefs Association and the chiefs throughout Cuyahoga County to come up with impact units, to come up with maybe a community policing program that we would be in harmony with them. So we've asked them to give us their thoughts and their suggestions on what we can do to be a more effective sheriff's office to the community as a whole. So with that, that's just a small overview of the office. If you've got any questions, certainly feel free to ask.
Are there any questions?
Madam Chair, Sheriff Reed, you mentioned the community policing or partnerships that you could have with the city of Cleveland. In block watches across the county, you usually have a municipal police officer there. Could you tell us a little more about how you could see you working in that relationship in a harmonious way with the local police?
Sure. I think what we could do, and the way we can be the most effective with our resources, and as you know, and I'll get to your question, but our resources are real thin right now. We're going to be hiring deputies. As you know, we put out a request or put out an application, the application process last Monday. We're going to hire 10 deputies, but that doesn't even touch the ones we've lost through attrition. And we've actually stopped a couple of the patrol units that we had out there, one in East Cleveland, one in North Randall, that we helped in assisting them. I think that we can do it, and we have the challenges of the Justice Center, the Juvenile Justice Center that's going to open in March. We are responsible for that. They've already, we've sat down with them over the last year to go over the security issues in the complex. We're going to go from 11 deputies to 22 to man the facility, and 8 protective services to 12 protective services alone just to man the facility. It's a lot bigger. There's many more courtrooms, and we have that responsibility as also our mandate. So with all of that said, I think that the best way to do this is to look at what we can do as far as impact units are concerned. For example, let's say the city of Cleveland Heights is having problems in a certain area with burglaries, and they would have the opportunity, the chief in Cleveland Heights would contact us and say, listen, we're having a problem here in this area. Could you bring in 10 deputies for a 2 or 3 week period of time to help us out? And that's what we would be looking at, where we can get a real bang for our buck. Hire more deputies eventually. We've got some resources that we're looking at how to generate revenue and also how to cut costs in the future. So the impact unit seems to me to be the best way to do it. Maybe in harmony with some of the community policing programs that they have in the different communities. But I think the biggest bang for our buck to try to make communities safe is to look at those impact units. And we're going to present that to the county executive, who I'm sure is going to share with you.
One other question.
Go ahead and finish, Ms. Simon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned the warrants, the number of warrants that were outstanding. What impact have those safe surrender events had, and what impact have they had on the warrants?
Yeah, a tremendous impact. Fugitive Safe Surrender, for those of you that don't know, is a program that was coordinated through the U.S. Marshal Service. Pete Elliott actually started it here in Cleveland in 2005. With about 1,800 turning themselves in 2005. We just did the program in October. We had 7,000 people turn themselves in for our 7,000 warrants that were cleared. And it's got a significant impact for every one of those individuals that have warrants hanging over their heads. As far as Cuyahoga County is concerned, we only had about 750 felony warrants that were actually taken care of, and about 6,000 misdemeanor warrants throughout the city of Cleveland, and throughout. Not that that's not important to those individuals, and it's not important. It's important for those dockets to be cleared up too in those municipalities. The only thing I was disappointed with was the number of felony warrants that were cleared up, which was about 750. But I think it was a tremendous success. It set records on any fugitive safe surrender that there's been throughout the country. So I think it's very effective.
Thank you, Madam President. Sheriff Reed, thank you very much for your overview, comprehensive. But are you able to give us, maybe in writing, the subheadings to which you discussed tonight? Because you really read all those off, and I want to be able to look at each heading and be able to ask questions on each program.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? All right, we will be ready for you on Thursday morning at 9 o'clock.
Thanks very much.
All right,
Thank you.
nice seeing you. Thank you. You know, you can invite us over for one of those meals at the jail. When I was forming the grand jury, actually the food was pretty good, but we'll arrange it to come over and have lunch at the jail one day.
Well, you know what? As I said, I don't even know if I said that we serve 6,000 meals a day.
All right, we will arrange that sometime in the future. Okay, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda follows up on the two previous matters, and that is discussion of the confirmation hearings procedures. Since we haven't existed before and we haven't done a confirmation hearing, we need to establish some procedure. And did Mr. Miller, Mr. Greenspan work on that, or?
Madam President, Mr. Miller took the lead on that.
Okay. Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Madam President and my colleagues, as chairman of the Rules Committee, Councilman Greenspan suggested that I give some thought to procedure for confirmation hearings. And first of all, we kind of decided that we didn't think this was something that needed to be specified in rule of council, but was kind of at the discretion of the chair that was conducting the confirmation hearings. But nevertheless, I came up with some general suggestions along the lines of the first step, of course, would be that the council president would refer the executive appointment to committee, and the expectation would be that major departmental appointments would be referred to the committee of the whole, while most board and commission appointments would be referred to human resources. Second, that in advance of the hearing, that the appointee should submit to the clerk a resume and a statement providing the candidate's outlook on the plans and the candidate's conception of the office to which that person's been nominated. And third, that the council would hold the confirmation hearing at which the candidate would open with a presentation of qualifications, motivations for seeking the position, and outlook and plans regarding the office. And fourth, that the members would ask questions of the candidate, and we thought that it might be useful for the chair to kind of go around the table and have each candidate ask 2 or 3 questions at a time, rather than having one person ask a whole litany of questions and then most other people's questions have been answered. And so you'd go around in this way, and then after you've done that, if there's more questions, well, then you'd go for another round until all the questions were completed. And then after the hearing is completed, then I think it would be up to the committee to decide, well, have we heard what we need to hear, and are we ready to take action? And if so, then the committee would immediately consider a motion to either recommend or not recommend to the full council that the appointment be approved. And if there's considerable unreadiness, well, then the committee would also have it in its power to say, well, we're going to hold this to a subsequent meeting, and at which time the members might do more research or ask more questions on their own or whatever. But the hope is that in most cases, after the committee hearing was completed, that the committee would be ready to make a recommendation. And then the final step of the process would be at the following regular council meeting, then a motion of council would be adopted to either consent to the executive appointment or not to consent, and that would complete the process.
So you would call for a vote at the end of the hearing for the recommendation, and the official vote would be then on the following council meeting?
Yes, Madam Chair, in terms of most committee processes, the purpose of the committee is to make a recommendation to the full council, but only I think only at a regular council meeting itself can an approval of this type take place. So I think that it would be up to the committee to make a recommendation to the full council, and then at the next meeting the full council would act on it.
The only other question was, is there a point here for public comment?
Yes, there should be public comment at any committee hearing. Probably the meeting should begin with public comment.
That would be my thought. If we had public comment to start, because if citizens raised issues, then we could follow up with questions, because citizens would really not be in the position to ask the questions. I think they could raise points, and then we would follow up with any particular question. All right, I assume that you have this in writing. I do. All right. Any other comments on that? Are we adopting Mr. Miller's recommendation and procedure? Okay, thank you. We assume you send that to all of us. Thank you.
I will.
All right, do we have any committee reports?
Madam President,
Mr. Greenspan.
I'll just give just a brief update. The ethics rules, charter review, ethics, and council operations has had 3 meetings. We are moving quickly but prudently to be able to present an ordinance for the February 17th work session. And we just to give a quick update, we spent the first 2 meetings painstakingly going through definitions. I want to thank my committee members for their patience and indulgence as we went through that. We will be next Tuesday at 1 o'clock having another meeting, at which time we will review a proposal through minimally the first 4 articles of an ethics ordinance, and then hopefully we will have more sections for us to discuss. The Ohio Ethics Commission has agreed to review our ethics ordinance and provide feedback and comment to make sure that we're consistent with Ohio ethics laws at a minimum. And the expectation is that the Ethics Committee will present an ethics ordinance which, as I said, at a minimum supports the state ethics laws, and where possible we will strengthen it. But we will in no way, and we are prohibited from weakening state law.
I'd like to commend Mr. Greenspan. He's done the most diligent job, apparently even worked through the Steelers game Sunday night. We're going to give you a pass during the Super Bowl, okay?
Thank you.
Anything else? Go ahead, Mr. Miller.
Madam President, in regards to the Finance and Budgeting Committee, we're going to have our first meeting next Monday at 1 o'clock, and the Director of Budget and Management, Mr. Rubino, has agreed to come and give us an overview presentation of the current state of county finances. We're also going to discuss the general work plan for the committee for the year. The the salient points of which are going to be that during the mid-year we're going to have to do a budget process to align the budget for 2010 with whatever setbacks we receive as a result of the state budget process. And then late in the year, in the fourth quarter, we're going to have a budget process to complete the budget for 2012. There is a third thing that we're going to discuss, and I also want to bring it up here for some discussion, which is that it occurred to me that it might be good to set up a subcommittee, which would include both some members of the Finance Committee and some capable members of the general public who could generally help us with communicating Cuyahoga County's concerns and needs around the state budget process. So I put that out there for any comment.
Anybody have a comment? All right, we entrust it to your capable hands. Okay. Any other committee reports?
Madam Chair, not a report, but I just made an observation on the handout that we have of the committee reports. As Chair of the Public Works, the official title is Public Works, Contracting, and Procurement. And procurement is listed under Human Resources on my handout.
This was my typing at home, and I thought we had corrected that, so let's correct that. If there's nothing further, we can move on to these committee assignments. Committee assignments have been passed out to members of council. I'm a little bit confused with the numbering on the copy that I have. George, okay. These are possible dates. Oh, okay. All right. We've gotten into an intricate panel. Mr. Elliott over here.
May I ask George to chime in and to tell you how he's actually set up this page?
I thought these were daily lottery numbers or something.
They can be. What we're working on right now is, first of all, we're working on the master calendar for all of council that has been somewhat implemented, and that we can explain that when we're in the office as to how to access it and all that. What I've been working with individually is talking to each council member relatively individually and talking about when they want to have their committee meetings on X date of the week of council or X date of off weeks of council and at what time. So those were just kind of some scratch notes that I started doing, and then a number of council members asked me to kind of share it, for lack of a better word. So that's where that insert came in your folder. Tomorrow, that all will be electronically submitted to you guys for your acceptance on your calendars. And then at that point, if there's any changes to your meetings, to your times, to your locations, or anything of that nature, all you have to do is let me know, and those things will be taken care of.
Well, we'll just go for the record. We have the committee assignments for the council. I'll just read the chairman. The budget and finance will be entrusted to Mr. Miller, who has a long-time experience in Cleveland City Council and the state budget. Mr. Brady will be handling health and human services, along with Ms. Conwell, who has indicated a very strong interest in that. Mr. Jones, Ms. Simon, Mr. Gallagher. Mr. Schron is already deeply involved in the economic development planning. He's chairman of that committee, and he's currently over at our jobs fair today representing the council. He'll be assisted by Mr. Brady as vice chair, Mr. Gallagher, Mr. Greenspan, Mr. Rogers, myself, Mr. Germana. Public Works, Contracting, and Procurement, is that correct? Be chaired by Mr. Jones, vice chaired by Mr. Germana, with members Ms. Conwell, Mr. Miller, and Mr. Rogers. Human Resources, Appointments, and Equity, which will have deal with all of our appointments, would be in the capable hands of Ms. Conwell, who's also already been working on these matters, and Mr. Rogers and Mr. Gallagher. Public Safety will be chaired by Mr. Gallagher, Vice Chair Mr. Greenspan and Ms. Simon. Environment and Sustainability, Mr. Rogers, Ms. Simon, and Mr. Germana. Intergovernmental Relations and Collaboration, chaired by Mr. Germana, Vice Chair Mr. Schron, Mr. Miller, Ms. Conwell, and Ms. Rogers. Rules Committee, our most active committee, chaired by Mr. Greenspan, and he also will be chairing an ad hoc committee on the Inspector General, and he's also already doing a great deal of work on that with the Vice Chair, Mr. Miller, who has so ably initiated our initial rules with members myself, Mr. Brady, and Mr. Simon, and finally Justice Affairs. Ms. Simon will be chairing that along with myself as Vice Chair and Mr. Jones. So some of these will be overlapping. We do have 10 committees, so there are a lot of committees here. I think there's going to be some overlapping on some of these matters. Public Safety and Justice Affairs, I think, probably overlapping in some matters involving the jail and some of the other things. So we'll work through these, and if we want to make a change, we can always make a change. And we do have some issues with meeting rooms. We'll be working that out, and we'll be posting these on the website for all the committee meetings. We get a regular, every time we set one, Mr. Elliott will be diligently posting those on the website so that the public can attend. Any other comments on the committees, Mr. Germana?
Madam Chair, the Intergovernmental Relations and Collaboration Committee is being chaired by me, and being on 5 different committees, what I need to do is kind of take a calendar and pinpoint, because 6 committees already decided when they're going to be meeting. We've got meetings on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursday, and of course we have our county council meetings and work sessions on Tuesday. So I'm going to see the other members of the committee. One, you don't have to come down every day. So I'm going to try to make it conducive so that we could see how we could fit before or after some of these other committee meetings.
And this is probably a committee that you're going to spend time out in the districts and going to meetings around the county, so you may not actually have to meet as much as some of the other committees.
That's correct.
And build on your relationships you've already had with the municipal judges, municipal clerks association, et cetera. Yeah, Mr. Brady.
Yes, thank you. Madam Chairperson, just I agree with you that there will be some overlapping issues, and I believe that in some cases, if committee chairmen choose to, that joint committees, can be held when it's clearly, an overlapping area. In terms of the difficulty of trying to schedule all these committees in a way that it's possible for people to attend, it's not easy. But I'm looking at holding the Health and Human Services committee meetings on the off week rather than the week of the council meeting, so that hopefully that'll give people more room during any given week to attend other matters. But from my point of view as a chairman, I'm going to try this out for a couple of months and see whether it works or not, what works best for people.
All right, anything further on the committees? All right, we have miscellaneous business, but we neglected in our haste to put on the agenda, going over, items that are on the agenda for tonight. So that's what our usual practice is, and that's why we have a lot of staff people here from the county. So I believe it's in order, then we would start with the agenda and go over those things that we will be voting on at our 6 o'clock meeting. Is that okay with everybody? The first item, item number 9, which will be on our regular council agenda, would be consideration of motion for suspension of the rules in order to appoint individuals to the Board of Revisions. I think that information has been circulated to members. I don't know if there's any discussion about that at this point.
Madam Chairperson.
Yeah, Mr. Brady has been our ad hoc person on this.
Just that it appears that we're coming to the end of the first stage of this work. If the council is ready to move on these appointments, our appointments, to the boards to help set up the 3 panels on the board, because we're looking at 7 names this evening. And then, though, if we intend to set up 7 panels, we're going to have to be doing some more interviewing, and so we're going to need at least 1 panel to do some more interviewing pretty soon down the road here. So I'll be looking to the direction of the council president for who would be interested or appointed to set on that 1 panel to interview further candidates, more candidates to fill the remaining panels.
Do you have any idea how many people are going to interview?
No, I would rather I would want to hear what Mr. Murphy has to say about. I know that some people have still been interviewed. I don't know at what point in the process or how many candidates that we still have, before us to be interviewed. But I think it's in the range of 8 or 9 people.
Do we need more than 3 council members to interview them?
I don't believe so. It would be my suggestion that 1 panel with 3 members would be probably the most efficient way to do that. And obviously, we know from the time we spent here 3 weeks ago that that's a very time-consuming matter, as well as the rest of this. So I will be looking for volunteers.
I don't see anybody jumping up and down to volunteer. Okay. All right, so we can actually work that when we get from Human Services. Well, I guess we don't need to reiterate, because the public will be here at 6 and we'll be having this on the agenda again, the process that we got to this point. So I don't think it's any sense in taking up time to go through that. I think we should probably be appropriate at a 6 o'clock meeting to just reiterate the process. But okay, then that's we don't need to deal with it anymore. Let's go on to the resolutions in terms of, once again, we'll have to suspend the rules for the resolution. This would be on the motion. I'm sorry. The last item would be on a motion for the recommendation. And the next items are resolutions for the appointment of staff. Ms. Jean Schmatzer and for Mr. Joseph to be named the clerk of court. She's been our pro tem clerk starting with our first meeting. And we have a resolution declaring to make her the clerk of the council, and then followed by a resolution naming Mr. Joseph Nanny chief of staff. Do we have any discussion on that? Or? All right, let's go on to, we have a number of items on the agenda. Hopefully we'll get to some point where we can do regular 3 readings. All of these are under suspension of the rules, so they have to be passed this evening. And we'll go on to item number 6. Some of these were on the agenda the last meeting, and they had to be pulled because we didn't have the necessary paperwork or whatever. We're going to start with number 6, having to do with some road improvements on Stump Road in Parma. I'm not sure if everybody had an opportunity to read these. Do we need to go through these individually or pick out any one selected, like where we have staff? Mr. Greenspan?
Madam President, I would recommend at this point, if any of us have any questions about these, that we would ask staff to come forward. If not, we could probably reserve comment to the meeting itself.
I had a question on number 20, this Farm Med Corporation, not to exceed $360,000. Is this for medical for the jail? There's a couple here on the jail that I had some questions about.
Yes. Hi, Chris Stubber. I'm the manager of healthcare services at the jail. This is the contract, the vendor that we use to provide medical supplies in the jail. Things like IV solutions and dressings and those type of things, syringes, all the medical equipment that we use to provide health care to the inmate population.
And so this would go through 2013, right?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. There's also a contract with the company that supplies Midwest, something that supplies the medical treatment.
Midwest Medical Staffing, they provide our physicians and psychiatrists, pharmacists, and the different physicians that provide medical care to the inmates in the jail. And Midwest Medical has been with us for quite a few years, and this was an amendment to exercise our third-year option with Midwest Medical. Moving into the future, we're looking at some different options as far as hiring our own medical director and medical practitioners. But in the meantime, it's been a slow process, and we needed to have someone in place to provide that necessary medical care to the inmates. And so we exercised the third-year option until we can get our own staff in place.
And how long have you had a contract with them?
Midwest Medical has been providing service in the jail since 1995.
And what kind of oversight do they have?
For providing care in the jail?
Okay, so they provide these services. I mean, what kind of oversight do you assess them every so often?
Yes,
because
we
you've
do.
had some problems in the jail.
Yes, we do assess them, and we do work real closely with them. We're an accredited facility through the National Commission on Correctional Health Care, and in order to be accredited, we have to have a licensed physician be in charge of clinical decisions in the jail, and that's what Midwest Medical Staffing provides for us. They're the only ones that can order medications, that can fill the medications, that can do those type of things, but the director and I work very closely with the physicians from Midwest Medical. We have regular meetings with them. They're in the jail every day that we have consultations with them. And so we're the ones who are providing oversight on what services that they're providing.
They provide the doctors, but the sheriff indicated that the nurses are employed by the county.
Yes, that's correct.
So they're supervised by the doctors from Midwest, but the nurses and the practical nurses are actually employed by the county. Is that correct?
Yes, they are.
Okay.
Madam President, I have a question.
Yes.
This may be a simple question. It seems to be a simple question. Why do we not use Metro Health physicians to provide that service? Why do we outsource that?
We've had several meetings with Metro Health beginning in the middle of last year, and Metro Health looked at partnering with us in doing this, but correctional health care is so different from what's provided in the hospital that they didn't feel that it was a good fit for them to provide those services. They are working with us, and they are going to help us when we have candidates for a medical director position to pick the candidate. But at this point, it wasn't a good fit for their hospital to provide those services here.
Do we have a medical director now? I thought maybe the sheriff mentioned that they were going to hire one, or they don't have one. Or
we're looking to hire our own as a county employee. We're currently still using Dr. Toofer, who is the medical director through Midwest Medical Staffing.
The reason I might just add is that last year we looked at the issue of setting up our own staff, and I believe that that's the direction that we should take. Not only because I think it's going to be efficient, but also I think that in the long term that we can save some money doing it. But I think what's most important is to make sure that we move on this kind of slowly. It's a big step to go from contracting out $1.8 million to be in charge of those physician services. As Christine has said, Metro Hospital has said that they'll help us in the selection process. We put out an ad for the medical director in a couple different magazines and so forth. We just haven't gotten the results that we wanted. And as we got closer to the end of last year and we didn't get a medical director in place already, we started to get a little concerned about 2011. So that's the reason why we went to Midwest Medical. That really, for a long time, has been a good fit for the county jail. But we think that in 2012 we can probably do it better and do it for less money.
So if you hire this medical director, what kind of a salary, just ballpark?
160 is what we're advertising right now, but we believe it's probably going to be between 160 and 180, depending on the qualifications.
And then would you still keep Midwest?
We would not. That medical director then would start putting his own team together of part-time physicians throughout Cuyahoga County and maybe through the state of Ohio. Right now, we contract that out to $1.8 million. Most of those physicians that are under contract to Midwest Medical are part-time physicians that work somewhere else full-time, come into the jail, as psychiatrists, as general practitioners, and so forth. So we would put together our own team of doctors that would actually be working, and we have such a pool of resources in Cuyahoga County. We believe that we'll get many applications for those physician services. Also, this position is going to be a full-time one. It's not going to be a part-time. The medical director will be a full-time position.
Yeah.
Did we get more of an explanation from Metro as to not a good fit?
Yeah, what they said is that they had brought it to their board, and they had discussed it with their board, and that they didn't believe that it was a good fit for them because they don't have that expertise in correctional medicine. I think in the future that we probably need to sit down and discuss it further.
This was a board decision?
That's what I was told from the CO, from Mr. Moran.
Okay. I consider Metro one of our areas of resources that, maybe they need to meet with us a little bit more on that one.
I agree.
Madam Chairperson.
Yeah, Mr. Greenspan.
Just on this issue as a follow-up to Councilman Gallagher's comments, and Mr. Gallagher just said on the Health and Human Services Committee that I chair, and there are a whole series of issues involving Metro that we as a committee want to go into. This would be one of them. So we will be following up in a way that I think has not been the case in the past, involving issues that have to do with Metro.
I might share one thing is that when they said that it wouldn't be a good fit, at least for last year and this year, is that they volunteered to help us with our electronic medical records. They were actually going to do bring in a consultant and look at the whole operation, but we said we're already NCCHC certified. That's a top level of certification for jails throughout the state throughout the country. They then in turn said that they would help us with electronic medical records in reference to implementing electronic medical records in the sheriff's office. So we are working with them now on that issue, and it's huge. We're still a paper society in the jail, and that's got to change.
Mr. Greenspan.
Madam President, just fundamentally 50,000-foot level, what's the difference between correctional medicine versus traditional triage or emergency room medicine or extended care? I fail to see the difference.
The difference with correctional medicine is the patient population is different. People coming into the jail tend to have many more health problems than people out in the community because many of them are drug users. They don't have insurance in the community. They neglect their health care. They're way more likely to sue than patients in the community. In the jail, you have 100 people coming into the jail every day. So you're dealing continuously with people who are coming in with serious medical conditions. They're on dialysis. They're getting chemotherapy. They have all different kinds of issues going on. And our goal in the jail is to treat people in a safe manner in the jail if we can. And so it's a different, when you're working in an emergency room, for instance, you have the resources of the whole hospital at your fingertips. If you need someone to have an MRI, they can have it done. If you need whatever test, they can have it done. Whereas in the jail, the physicians have to make a lot more decisions. We have physicians who have a lot of experience in the community and private practice, so that you're seeing people for the first time with very serious conditions. You don't have a history with that person. So it's different than when you're in private practice and you're seeing people month after month or year after year for the same conditions. So there's a lot of liability associated with it because you don't really know, people coming into the jail may or may not tell you the truth about what their medical history is, about what medications they're taking. So you deal with many, many different issues that in private practice or in the hospital setting you don't deal with.
I have a follow-up question, Madam President. And this is just a generic question. Fundamentally, in other counties, does the county hospital play an active role in correctional medicine?
I'm not sure about that. I don't really know.
I might add one thing. Many, many jails throughout the state of Ohio have contracted services. They're doing the same thing that we are. The tendency now throughout the state, when I say now, within the last year or so, is actually to go back the opposite way, is to have your own staff in place. But the issue in reference, Councilman, in reference to coordinating with the county hospital, that I don't know. We'd have to look at it. But most communities or most jails now are going to what we envision in 2012.
Yes, I assume that you've gone to jails or looked at jails around the country and around the state just to compare their services. Because I understand that this Midwest there's not a whole lot of companies that do this, right?
And prior to, I might add, and maybe the director can also add, is, prior to issues that we had the last couple of years, we went almost 12 years with Midwest Medical without one lawsuit. Now, given that type of environment and our average daily population, that's a pretty good track record.
All right, anything further? So we'll be prepared to probably ask you some more questions about that on Thursday. Anything further on Mr. Purnell, Mr. Jones?
Madam Chair, I do have a question regarding to the Corrections Center jail kitchen. I see 3 resolutions, and each one has a due date. The first one has a due date of the 13th, a request to push it back to the 20th, and now it's a request to push it back to the 28th, about 4 days from now. What's going on that the due date is moving back?
You're referring to items 35 and 36.
Resolution 11, 35, and Resolution 36.
It's addendum 3 and 4, and I think it also goes back to addendum item number 6.
No, it starts with Resolution 11.
Yeah, 11, that's the one. So 11, 35, and 36 all have to do with addendum, the technical changes to the bids for this for the jail kitchen.
Contractors to place bids in, so I think a lot of the delay was just because of the holiday season.
Yeah, I think the clerk can explain her experience about this.
I think also during the transition process and waiting for approvals, the approval process for these, because the bid due dates were pushed forward. Every time that date passes, they have to issue yet another addendum. So this is just a technicality that the departments have to go through in order to have an accurate document sent to the vendors to know that formally that the bid due dates are changed to a different day. So it's just a technical items.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Germano.
All throughout the agenda, there's these dates that are already passed. Is it that they have accepted bids for the past date and we're authorizing it now?
Are you referring to the addenda that we were just discussing, or do you have a particular item that I can look at? And
I'm looking at a lot of them. They're changing the date to say January 13th. Well, it's the 25th.
Right.
If they went ahead and accepted the bids on those prior dates.
No, they haven't, and that's why they issued the addenda. So they had to keep issuing the addenda. So your approval really is backdating those addenda that you're approving, because the department was forced to issue the addenda until they got the final approval for the final bid due date. How else can I explain that? Is Lenora, you want to? Lenora Lockett from procurement is here.
Lenora Lockett, Office of Procurement and Diversity. During the bidding process, if you have questions that come up that must be addressed that feel that will affect the ability of the bidders to submit integrous bid, then you have to issue the addendum. And typically they issue them at that time so that they can continue with the bidding process, but it does require approval by the governing body. So you usually will set the bid due date for a couple of days after the date that you anticipate obtaining governmental approval. And in this case, with the transition of government and the different meeting dates, addenda had to be issued to make sure that the governing body had the opportunity to do the appropriate approvals.
Does that answer your question, Mr. Germain?
Actually, my question is, there's a number of them that are, we delayed the date to January 13th, 2011. Of course, that's 2 weeks ago. So were the bids accepted at that time, and we're passing a resolution?
No, the bids have not been accepted. I believe in the case of the ones indicated there, the 28th, because once they when they issued the maybe addendum number 2 or 3, it was anticipated that they would have governmental approval by January 11th. At that time, when they did not make that agenda, the additional addenda had to be issued to make sure that all of the addendum would be approved prior to the bids being received.
Like if you look at 35, 35 goes from the 13th to the 20th of January, and then the next one at 36 takes it from the 20th to the 28th.
Correct. Originally, there was an anticipation that the county council would meet on a weekly basis, and then once it was decided that you would do the alternating weeks, then there had to be additional addenda issued to adjust with the actual meeting dates for the council.
That answer your question?
Well, I don't know why I'm not understanding this, but in particular on R211006, just for specific, okay, it's calling for us to approve this resolution under suspension, and we're changing the bid due dates from 12/7/2010 to 1/13/2011. And there's a few more that have the 1/13/2011. So my question is, we're being asked to approve this, but it's already passed. Did you accept bids for the?
No, what happened is that at one point, addendum number 2 was issued, anticipating that approval would occur so that the bid due date could be extended to the 13th. When it became clear that there would not be a meeting in time to approve that item, then addendum number 3 would be issued, changing the overall bid due date. So that's why for number 2,
if you go down to number 27,
right.
I, which is number 27, it's the addendum 3. Number 6 is addendum 2 to the same project, and then number I is addendum 3 to the same project.
Madam Chair, maybe I can clarify this a little bit. This has to do with the fact that items were pulled off the agenda 2 weeks ago. Had they not been pulled off, these addendums would not be necessary because we would have met in such a time as to effectuate the resolution. What's happening now is effectively we're ratifying a previous agreement, correct?
Right. And each addendum had an anticipated date that they thought the addendum would be approved.
I understand your confusion. It took me like the 4th reading after marking down all these dates to figure out what was happening here. But they do flow from addendum 2 to 3, but they're in this particular case, in that 35 and 36, they're in order. And this one, it goes from A to item I for the same item.
And also, there are ORC requirements, so the departments try to issue the addendum as soon as possible because you have to give the bidders a certain amount of time before the bid due date when you make these changes. So if you delay until you get the actual approval, then now you have to go at least 3 to 5, 7 days after the approval date. So the departments, we issue the addendum as they occur with the anticipated date of approval.
Okay. On docket number, I would say docket number, on number 37, this is one of those accounting matters where we're balancing up budget, and Mr. Miller generally has some questions on those. I've looked through those. Anybody have any specific questions on any of those? It's a number of pages showing various reallocation of budget items.
Madam President, you're on target as usual. I do have a question about this.
How did I know that?
and my question in particular is about the item in which you transferred $150,000 from the Transition Advisory Group for some other purpose. And my understanding is that it turns out that more money was appropriated for the transition process than appears to be needed, and creating some availability to make this kind of transfer. And my question is after this transfer is completed, how much of an excess is there in the transition advisory group appropriation in excess of what we anticipate will be needed from this point forward to complete the transition expenses?
You give us a page number on, it's under number 37, but these pages are numbered. Do you have a page number on that? Yeah, the pages of...
Madam President, actually, I reviewed it on the computer screen in the afternoon, so I don't know what.
Madam President, Matt Rubino, Office of Budget Management, members of council, good evening. It's on page 4, so it'd be it's the first unnumbered page of the actual agenda that has the narrative, and then it continues on to page 2 of the agenda itself. If I could provide some background then on the transfer.
Yes.
The $150,000 transfer, we had gotten approval from the previous administration to move dollars from the TAG budget and Transition Advisory Group budget to cover this grant match contract. And this was after the budget process. As you recall, we approved a budget on October 28th. So normally we have a little more time to do some last minute planning for contracts that are in the ongoing operating budget. We did not last year. So we did gain approval from the commissioners and the county administrator to use some excess appropriation in the Transition Advisory Group budget to cover this grant with Community Solutions. So you're seeing the actual increase and decrease. We're decreasing $150,000 from the TAG budget, increasing the Human Services Other Contracts budget account to cover this contract. I guess the second part of the question on the transition budget itself, we'd mentioned this before. As we planned for transition to charter government, we appropriated a $7 million budget account last year. Now, over half of that was to cover the primary election that was held last year. The remainder was set up for related staffing and contracts and any other foreseen or unforeseen expenses to make the transition. As of today, we will probably be transferring some additional appropriation out of this account to cover some of the capital project expenses related to council chambers and renovations to the county administration building. So we'll use the appropriation in this account to cover expenditures in those capital projects, since they are related to transition and they're one time. After that, we're probably down to less than $1.5 million left in this account. So the last question, Councilman Miller, was did we appropriate too much or do we have too much? I don't think we can answer that just yet because we're still in a transition process, if you will. So I think we'll probably have this budget in place depending on what other items that arise during the year that account for executive and council's work on fully transitioning to charter governance.
Madam President, there is another transition that we're going to have to deal with, which is the transition to the post next state budget scenario, and I'm already thinking about where we can try to find money to help get us through what we're going to face when the state makes cutbacks. So I'm hoping that maybe we will not need to use all of this money and that we will have at least some of it available to deal with problems that are going to occur when we get that new state budget mid-year.
Madam President, I have one.
Go ahead, Mr. Greenspan.
Thank you. With the transition going on and with the capital expenditures for the transition government to move into place with the staffing that's occurred both at the executive and council level. And this is premature because we haven't seen a monthly financial statement yet since the first month has not concluded. Do you do a variance analysis compared to the budget over and under and provide analysis as to where we are on an annual basis?
Councilman, yes, we do. We normally do quarterly estimates of the county budget, so we look at all operating budget line items, revenue and expense, and compare them to the operating plan, the budget. We do formal reports every quarter, and we do monthly reports as needed. We do a payroll projection every 2 weeks. Yeah, but our formal reporting process is our quarterly reports. We'll do after mid-year, which is second quarter, we'll do a quick financial outlook report, and that'll serve as one of the foundations for budget development. And we'll also couple that, of course, with what we know about the state budget.
Miller?
Madam President, on that point, how soon after the close of the first quarter will the first quarter update be available?
Well, first quarter closes March 31st. We'll begin work right around the end of March on starting our estimates. And the process itself goes about a month, because what we're doing is looking across all county programs and revenue sources, making updates. We're really answering 5 questions. What do we expect to receive or expend for the rest of the year, the remaining 9 months, of course? What do we anticipate our outlook is for the year? That's question 2. Question 3 is, what's the variance against the budget for revenue and expense? And then the last 2 questions, 4 or 5, are what are outlooks for 2012 and 2013? And then we also do a 5-year analysis that's kind of part of that quarterly report process.
Madam President, I would point out that you're talking roughly the 1st of May. And
last week of April, Councilman, and we'll release the report and then a formal presentation, yes, first week of May.
And that's also about the time that the state budget normally goes from the House to the Senate, at which time that we'll have a somewhat good idea of what we're likely to see, particularly since both houses of the legislature are similarly controlled, and so that would seem to be the point where we'll want to really start looking at the mid-year update.
Madam President, follow-on question, please. Financial information must be three things: timely, accurate, and concise. My concern is if we wait till May to get an understanding as to what's happening in what's happening in January with our budget, knowing we're going to see some budget. We know what's coming down from the state. We just don't know how much. These monthly reports that you do, how in depth, how detailed are they? And when would they be released, and would we be able to see those, understanding their interim numbers? I just don't want to wait till May to find out we have a problem.
I understand. The formalization of a monthly report was part of the recommendation set provided during the transition review process. We provide data on a monthly basis, and we're going to be putting forward some template for a monthly report that goes to the executive and council. It'll be more big picture, whereas the quarterly review is everything, and we give you the detail plus the 30,000-foot level. I can tell you, though, from a month-to-month basis, at least this year, the revenue and expenditure outlook doesn't change a lot. Now, we'll be providing an update on the county budget in the Finance Committee meeting to give you an idea where we're at right now. But right now, going through February and March, there is nothing unanticipated that we're aware of. So I think when we see the first quarter numbers, they'll be pretty close to the original operating plan. And I anticipate, I think maybe some of the larger revenue items should be at or slightly above what we expected just because of some of the economic indicators we've seen for January. So right now, the big question, of course, is the state budget process. I mean, everyone has ideas on what is going to be cut and what the impacts could be to the county. We're going to be working on an analysis that's wed with the first quarter review in May to start providing that, and have, I think, a good idea, as Councilman Miller mentioned, in May, what the state budget looks like and how it's going to impact the county.
Madam President, I have another question on this. The transfer of $1.7 million from the executive office of H&HS to reentry, and my question is is whether that does that reflect an increased commitment to reentry services, or is it more of a technical situation?
We're changing the chart of account structure for that budget. I know that sounds technical, but what we've done, chart of account structure, it's really where the budget was held in the book, so to speak, is being moved to a separate piece of the budget reporting entity. It's all it is. We're just moving it from one account to another. There's no net change on the appropriation level or in the scope of the program. It's just better. It has a better fit under the new structure that's been suggested.
Madam President. Thank you. Mr. Rubino, I had a question on what's the process for a resolution of this type actually getting put together? Do the department heads make a recommendation to you? And then what's the decision-making process on whether or not this actually makes it to resolution?
Well, the agenda itself is managed by the staff at OBM. They have their own account assignments. The majority of what you see here is either maintenance, so different maintenance items that pop up throughout the year. They may need appropriation moved within lines within their budget, or if we're creating new accounts for grants or projects, we're going to get those set up, provide narrative, do any kind of analysis that's necessary, and get those on the agenda. The items that require more recommendation and analysis are things that are a request for additional appropriation or new programs. So the cover memo that's on the first page, that first column, general fund, under the additional appropriation summary, things that hit that column go through analysis and review in OBM. Because what is happening, if there's no offsetting decrease somewhere, an agency is looking for either to augment a program's appropriation level or perhaps look for new funding for an additional program. So in that case, it's going to go through analysis in OBM, but also with the executive staff. So it'll gone through that process before it hits our agenda. But the bulk of what you see here really is more or less administrative housekeeping. The example, the reentry, was merely changing the account description and the sub-fund, which is where the dollars are held in the accounting system, to its own unique budget account. So again, it's just to transact something that's some housekeeping. And the housekeeping is really in coordination with agency fiscal staff, because they know their budgets fairly well, they understand their funding, and with the OBM staff, because they too play a role in either making suggestions or counseling agencies on how to affect a budget transaction that isn't for a new program or an augmentation of appropriation. So it's a lot of this agenda. The short answer is it's more or less technical. It's part of the ongoing day-to-day work we have in OBM.
So would the process be similar if there was new money request? Like, for example, I'm looking at the Justice Systems Management line item.
Yes.
The $30,000. It's a grant that was received from wherever.
Yeah, it was received last year. I think it was received from, I can tell you.
Well, the point is that's new money that was received from some
new money
externals.
that we're appropriating in order to spend. So you receive the money first, you have to appropriate in order to legally spend the money, and that's what that particular item was. So a lot of the work was done with whoever wrote the grant or anticipated the grant on the agency side did most of the work there. When it gets to OBM, it's more of a technical nature. We have a grant, we've received approval, we now have the dollars in the general fund, we can appropriate in order to expend the grant and carry out the grant implementation itself.
Right, that's pretty cut and dry. I'm more concerned with the instance where a department may have misbudgeted and realized that, oh Lord, we need 5 more cars for some particular thing, and who makes that decision?
We provide recommendations. So the Office of Budget Management would do analysis or recommendation as needed and provide recommendations to the appropriate staff in the executive office.
So that would be, it would go to OBM and then to the executive for...
Correct, Councilman. That is the normal process.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
If I may follow up to Councilman Rogers' questions with regard to specifics on page 1, that cover memo as well. And maybe you spoke to this earlier, but I wanted to make sure I understood. The $150,000 from the transition group that was moved over, or is asked to move over to the Human Services contract?
Yes.
Do you see that?
Yes.
How did that come to be? I mean, whose decision was that to move that money?
Well, there was a recommendation to provide funding for this grant. This is the end of 2010, and the commissioners and county administrator provided the approval. So that was more or less a request from an agency to the previous administration. The Office of Budget Management was transacting that recommendation or course of action on behalf of the administration.
Was the request specific to from which fund would the money come? Or was the request just simply that this particular contract service needed X amount of dollars, and then it was up to OBM to decide from
to find some
the
excess
source?
Appropriation, correct, Councilman?
I see.
And that's the transition advisory budget had excess appropriation.
That's where there's a little bit of excess. Okay.
Mr. Brady?
Yes, thank you. On page 6, Resolution 39, $669,556 for the Early Childhood Mental Health Services Program, the sponsors being the county executive and the county sheriff. In lieu of there being a Health and Human Services Committee that's operating as an example, could someone come forward and just explain this particular resolution? And
I would be happy if you wanted to stay up and do it, but I'll take a shot at it. I'm Rick Werner from the Office of Health and Human Services, Madam President and council members. Councilman Brady is referring to resolution number 39, which is authorizing the county to enter into a contract with the Alcohol and Drug and Mental Health Services Board to do early childhood mental health work on behalf of Invest in Children. I also want to acknowledge that Valeria Harper, the Chief Operating Officer from the Adams Board, is here with us today. We have, since the inception of the Invest in Children program, when it was the Early Childhood Initiative 8 or 10 years ago, focused on the complete needs of children in the community, young children. One issue that we recognized working with what was then the Mental Health Board and is now the Adams Board was that the mental health needs, the behavioral health needs of young children and their families were not always being addressed well by the community. And so we appropriated money starting, I think, 4 or 5 years ago, working with the Adams Board to allow them to enter into contracts with providers who would then serve children. And so we've continued that for the last couple of years, and fortunately this year working very closely again with the Adams Board. Despite other budget cuts that we needed to make in early childhood, we felt that this program was significant enough and really served a underserved population where behavioral health needs are concerned that we kept $669,000 in the Invest in Children budget to contract with the Adams Board. So that is the background, Councilman Brady. I'd be happy. Perhaps Ms. Harper can give you more information if you're looking for specific information about how the Adams Board uses those funds, but they contract with specific providers who then take referrals from agencies working with young children and their families.
Madam Chairperson, just to Mr. Warner, just for today, I just would like to know if you can tell me how this compares to the allocation. This is the 2011 allocation.
Yes, sir.
How does this compare to the 2010 allocation?
The 2010 allocation, Councilman Brady, was the same, $669,566. And thanks to the work of Rebecca Dorman putting this together, we were up as high back in 2007 at $1 million, and then we have fluctuated down to $612,000 in 2008, $800,000 in 2008 and 2009. So there's been some fluctuation here. One thing that the Adams Board requested from us and that we were interested in doing is to try to stabilize the amount of money that they have for the calendar year so that they can enter into service contracts with providers who are actually providing the service. And so we decided as we were going through the budgeting process for 2011 that we would endeavor, and we were able to to keep the contract amount or the amount budgeted in the Invest in Children budget at the 669 level.
Thank you, Madam
Obviously,
Chairperson.
I should also say, Mr. Brady, that these are all Health and Human Service levy funds. And obviously, as the discussion that you were all having before, the state budget, and if they withdraw more money from us, we'll be needing to try to figure out how to compensate for that. So we can't guarantee that the 2012 recommendation that the administration might come back and recommend to you would be at this level, but we're pleased to be able to maintain it for 2011.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
I have
Yes,
one
Mr.
question on one item. This is coming out of the County Engineering Department. This would be item number R 2011-0029. Could you just give an overview of that project? Almost $6.8 million. 29.
Members of council, my name is Michael Dever. I'm actually with the County Sanitary Engineer's Office, but I do work with the County Engineer's Office also. This item 11K, I believe it is. This is a federally funded project. The purpose of this request is to advertise in bids to obtain a qualified contractor to complete construction per plan at the lowest cost to the county. This is the grade separation at north on Fitch Road out in Olmsted Township. And the engineer's estimate is $6.7 million. This is just so we can start the process to go out for bids on it. And primarily the funding for this project is 80% federal funds and 20% county funds, which come from the license tag fees.
So is that, Madam President, is that $6.77 million the county's portion, or is that the total cost of the project and the county will be responsible for the 20% of that?
Actually, what it's broken down to is $2.6 million of the total $6.7 million is going to be 100% federal funding. It's part of a quiet rail going through the township. I'm sorry if I don't have the exact terminology for that. And then the remainder, $4.125 million, is going to be split. 80% of that will be covered by the feds, and the remainder, 20%, will be picked up by the county license tag funds.
So the actual impact to the county is really 20% of $4.1 million.
That's correct. And once again, this is the engineer's estimate. This is as it goes out for bid. The bids as we've noticed inside the last year and a half have been coming in much lower. So we think actually there'll be lower bids coming in.
And within this project, there's no sewer issue that we may be.
No, there is no sewer issue. We're extending the sewer line down Fitch Road a couple hundred feet just east of the grade separation, but that's the extent of it.
No impact to the residents?
No, there isn't, sir.
Okay, very good. Thank you.
Mr. Brady?
On
The
this
attendance
issue-
of Mr. Schron, who's been ably representing us at the job fair today.
Thank you. Madam Chairperson, this councilman has only one inquiry left on the calendar before the regular meeting. On page 5, under P, Resolution 34, a resolution approving an economic development loan in the amount not to exceed $800,000 to SDC University Circle Developer, LLC, for a project located at Cornell Road and Euclid Avenue, Cleveland, authorizing the county executive or the director of development to execute all documents. Could someone give us a little background on this loan? I was waiting. I'm glad that the chairman of the Economic Development Committee got into the room before I asked this question. Just like a little background on this particular loan.
Certainly, Madam Chairman, Chairwoman, Mr. Brady, myself, I'm James Herron. I'm from the Department of Development, and with me is the loan officer, Arnold Lockett. And I think I'll let Arnold give you a brief background on this project and our partners.
Council, this project is located right there on the corner of Canal, directly across the street from the Ireland Cancer Center. So if you've been in Cleveland, you've heard about all the new development at University Hospital. This particular project is diagonal across from it. Currently, right now, it's a parking lot. So it's going to be a new development. It's the hotel. The total cost of the project is $26 million. Our partners on this transaction, we have the City of Cleveland, the Port Authority, Cuyahoga County, of course, and Cleveland Partnership. So it's a collaboration of partners into this project. Our developer on this project is the Snavely. Their partners is Courtyard Marriott. This project was reviewed. There's been an independent study on the viability of this project. Those studies indicate this project is a viable project as a result of the VA hospital development project, the new Cleveland Art Museum development. So all this project is correlation in that particular area. It's a wonderful project. I think very highly of this project for the particular area. This project is going to create over 200 construction jobs. It's slated to have a commitment from a developer for 25 permanent jobs. We expect that there will be more jobs, roughly around 55, but he's committed to 25. It's certainly a good example of the type of things that we talked about this afternoon in the meeting, where you have a total public partnership making this project happen. So another thing about this project is it's partnered with the New Market Tax Credit from University Circle. This has roughly about $16 million of private money involved into it, and the rest remain of it is public partnership, which is a tax increment financing from the City of Cleveland. The port's going to issue a bond for it. The New Market Tax Credit, along with the Cleveland Public Partnerships piece of roughly about $2 million.
Madam Chairperson, well, obviously this is a very large project, and we're in a sort of a transition point here as a new council with only having been in office 3 weeks, and so we find ourselves in a unusual situation in terms of being at the back end of a very big development project that's been ongoing for quite some time. I just wanted a little clarification, as we have not yet developed a process for how the council will be engaging these kinds of projects and others in the future.
Madam Chair.
Do you want to respond?
Yes, Madam President. I realize this would be the kind of thing that would go before us, hopefully maybe for consideration in the future, but I can tell you that it's a Snavely Construction, it's a Cuyahoga County construction firm, so the dollars are not only staying with the construction firm, it looks like an exciting project, and I think that it also reinforces that linkage between the medical community and what we're doing as far as the county, the MedMart, people coming to town here and staying within our hotels that'll be associated with the use of our medical facilities. So I think it's an exciting project, and I think that we should all be proud of the way when it turns out. Even if we are getting at the back end of it, we'll be at the front end of all the recognition that I think that as we go forward with all these linked projects between medical, manufacturing, community, the service sector, the hospitality, I think all are a nice link for our community.
I also want to add that this particular project will be managed by the Courtyard Marriott, so it's an excellent provider that's going to be delivering the service. So they have a wonderful history of managing hotels across the country, so we have a good operator.
Madam President, Madam Chair.
Mr. Miller, Mr. Greenspan, Mr. Jones.
Madam President, to whoever can answer, can you explain what the terms of the loan agreement are?
The county's participation in this loan is going to be $800,000 for 15 years at a rate of 2%. So it's a phenomenal package that we put together for them.
We anticipate also that we might have to come back because we think the name of the borrowing entity will change because due to the New Markets tax credit structure. And that structure would require them to come up with an entity to take the proceeds of the New Markets tax credit. So if the council favorably views this tonight and approves it, we might have to come back due to the legal name of the borrower would change. And so I would keep that in mind in the future, but
And
because
Mr. Miller.
Madam President, my follow-up question, I don't have any doubts about the viability of this project with all the healthcare and University Circle and all the development going on in that area. My question is kind of at the opposite end. It's with the tax increment financing and the loan and whatever the Port Authority is offering and the bonds and so on. My question is why this much public participation is needed. It seems like it's a that might very well could stand on its own and could be done without a whole lot of government support.
Well, Council, this particular project, a lot of times in hotel deals, they are very tough deals to have finance. And I think a lot of part of on the hotel side is that in the financing, it's all speculative in the beginning. But when you have so many good moving, good pieces and parts, it makes the difference. So I want to say, to answer your question, because of the type of business that it is, but had it not been in the location that it's in now, that would probably be a different story. So even though it's a great project, financing side, it's very difficult to get a hotel project done. So public partners stepped up to make it happen because it makes good sense, and it's a great project for job creation in University Circle.
I also want to add, Madam Chair, Councilman Miller, that Snavely is a solid developer, and Concord Management operates an excellent hotel chain. They have had difficulty finding first mortgage financing for this project. It's taken their development team probably 4 to 5 months to get a commitment letter out of Penn Trust, the first mortgage lender. So hotel projects especially have been negatively impacted the past few years, and so why we certainly appreciate the comments. It has been difficult. It was actually easier to work with us at first, and then it lined up this public support, brought forward the first mortgage financing in this case.
All right, we have any more questions because we're coming up on 6 o'clock, and we do need to take a brief break here before we start our official meeting.
One quick question. I will be brief. Who's securing this loan in the event of default?
In the event of default, we have a first mortgage lender, which was going to be Penn Trust. They're partnered with, it's been discussed as PNC is another partner in the deal, but the Snavely's has guaranteed this particular transaction. And also, we're going to have a guarantee from Courtyard operator Mark Lepore.
Madam President, these guarantees, are they in the form of a bond, or what? How do you secure the? Do we have a security interest in the property in the event of?
We'll have a security interest in the property.
So no bond.
No bond.
No, they would be through the loan agreement and through the covenants of the loan agreement.
Mr. Jones, Mr. Rogers.
Madam President, my question is, well, actually, my original question was taken by Councilman Miller, so I'll ask a different question. This project sits right on the edge of near Cleveland Clinic and near a community that needs many jobs. Can you speak towards the workforce development aspect of the project?
Well, the type of jobs that you're looking at is your hospitality jobs, your servers, your house cleaning, your line management. The average salary is somewhere around $24,000, $25,000.
And actually, to answer the councilman's question, I think maybe you're asking, do we work with our Department of Workforce Development and Mr. Benders and Cuyahoga Works first? The answer is yes. We actually require them to sign a county workforce cooperation agreement that asks that any new jobs into the project are going to be considered for county residents working through our programs. And then also, since the city of Cleveland's providing the TIF in this project, and then the county has a SBE policy, it would probably be our preference to work with the city of Cleveland, who has the Fannie Lewis law that asks for minority set-aside candidates to work in the construction and then also the hiring process, which we think it's probably a bit more stringent process than even our SBE allows under law.
Mr. Rogers?
Madam President, I'll yield to Councilwoman Simon because my question pertains to a different subject.
My question does as well, and I'll just wait till our regular scheduled meeting. Thank you, Mr. Rogers.
Yeah, I just think it's important to point out to the audience and to maybe even in regards to this, Mr. Councilman Miller, that it's going to be more and more difficult with the banking situation the way it is to be self-sustaining some of these projects out there. We heard of one this afternoon that had over $150 million worth of the revenue be able to support the project, but the most amount of money they could get for funding was about $500,000. So there's going to be a lot of pressure coming because until the whole banking situation gets reconciled, there's going to be challenges in doing self-funded projects out there. So if we can get a little participation and get a big project, I think it's one of the things that makes a lot of sense for us.
Madam President, I'm over here.
Okay.
That's the second time.
Second time, yeah.
That's right. I just, if I could just indulge your time for just a moment, there's just a couple things I wanted to say. One is in terms of we're still playing catch up a little bit in terms of some of these projects being in the pipeline. The questions that are being asked from council as far as the specifics of this and what guarantees are in place are entirely appropriate. One of the things that I asked the interim leadership of the development department actually just yesterday was that both myself and council need to be given a briefing on all of the projects that are starting to come in the pipeline, because they were already talking about bringing other things up on council agendas later in February and I don't want to have a repeat where you're learning about them very close in time to the point in time where you'd be asked to make a vote. So that process is going to be improving. We're still inheriting some projects, and so I just wanted to make that point in terms of the appropriateness of having a public subsidy for something like this. I would just reiterate a couple things that have maybe been alluded to at least. One is that we've had difficulty in this county getting hotel projects underway. It's one of the reasons why we've had so much difficulty attracting large conventions, because we have a chronic shortage of hotels in the areas when it comes to hosting larger events. Secondly, as has been said, some of these commitments were made, or at least the discussions of commitments were made early in the process when some private financing wasn't available. And there are times when the county has an opportunity to step forward and put both its resources and also its approval behind a process, and that helps with getting the financing to go in the first place. Now, at the end of the process, you can say, well, look, you have all this financing, now why do you need our money? Well, that's because as the negotiation was going forward, sometimes it was that initial spark of county financing that allowed the private financing to have the confidence to do it. I'll respect whatever council's wishes are, obviously, in terms of if you need more time to deliberate about this, because as a council person, I didn't like being asked to make a financial decision if I felt like I hadn't done my due diligence. So we'll respect whatever your requests are. But I want you to know, in the future anyway, with projects that are coming in the pipeline, you're going to get them sooner, and you're going to be able to have your committee process to ask a lot of these questions a lot more in greater detail.
Well, I think that when you do these updates, if you can communicate with Mr. Schrein, who's chairman of the Economic Development Committee, and have him sit on that, it would probably facilitate us getting knowledge about them.
That's what I meant, that we'll refer them to your committee structure and your personnel as quickly as possible.
Because we're backing up on 6 o'clock here, and we need to take a brief break.
Was there any initial investment by Marriott into this project? Any financial contributions, collateral, so it's not collateral, but some initial investment?
Well, the developer has to meet the franchise requirements from Courtyard by Marriott. They had to do the architectural. They also went through the University Circle Incorporated process, the design review process, the City of Cleveland Planning Commission, and those public processes which require upfront development costs to be expended without any guarantee. And so they have sunk cost in all those things and doing environmental assessment work on the site. And they actually went through a process with University Circle where they selected this developer because of their expertise. So they had to put in some upfront time and dollars.
Could you put a rough dollar amount on what their investment might have been?
You know, off the top of my head, it might be difficult. Maybe
They are
Mr.
equity
Lockhart.
partner in this particular project with Snavely Development. And that, I would say, is roughly around 35% of the equity.
All right, Mr. Rogers.
Thank you. I'm sorry, Madam President, I just wanted to mention one point that was somewhat alluded to by Councilman Greenspan on Resolution 29. I think that we need to, it'd be very helpful for me at least, to have information on funding sources in our background documentation. I think the fact that this particular project is 80% funded by the federal government is extremely important to our decision-making process. So we need to, and I guess this may be a question for a clerk, but if we can have as much information, particularly around the source of the funding and how much is the actual county commitment, I think that's extremely important.
To the one that's passed out, the bound volume, there's a number of pages that support the original resolution, so there's some information there.
Yes, there is information there, but it doesn't, it says that this is a federally funded project, period. There's no 80-20 match in the background material.
Okay, well, we're evolving here in terms of supplying information, but.
Well, sure. I'm just saying in the future with projects that are similar to this, where we're getting some substantial money from the federal government, I think that's important for us to know and important for the public to know, so we have a real understanding of how much is the county commitment.
All right, anything further? We're going to take a break until 6:15 and start our meeting. All right.
If I may ask, if anyone wants to address the board about any agenda item, if you would fill out a form at the desk by the door and then hand that to me. I'll make sure you get your opportunity. Thank you.